What's up, guys? Nick Script, P2W Fantasy Podcast. We have a first team stream going on here. I got two of my guys under the brand name talking about an interesting topic. I feel like it's a topic we talk about every single year, the my guys heading into an actual fantasy football season. But before we talk about anything fantasy football related, I want to make sure I let Brandon and Colin introduce themselves. Let us know where we can find you and what's been going on with you guys. So go ahead. Let's just go top to bottom here in order to screen.
I'm assuming that's me. All right, so yeah, Brandon Blanco, writer for IDP guys and for P2W Fantasy. Just pretty much a big redraft guy. I've been with the community probably going on. This is my second full season, so still thought I knew everything about fantasy, but I humble myself every day with the bright minds in this industry.
Yeah, I'm Colin McTammany. I write for fantraxhq.com. I've been contributing to P2W Fantasy as well. You can catch me on the P2W YouTube channel. I've been interviewing analysts from a bunch of different NFL teams, trying to get some insight, expert analysis on each of those teams, which is obviously very helpful for fantasy football.
Yeah, those interviews have been very, very good, and I know they've drawn some attention on YouTube. Brandon obviously jumping in a bunch of the articles that we've been releasing as a team. If you guys are following me and not following them, go change that. These are two guys that are eager to get after it in the fantasy industry and have been dropping some good content. That's what you want out of a content creator at the end of the day. But we're talking my guys here, P2W Fantasy Team. Let's fucking get it. And the intro video doesn't go. That would have been cool, though. I guess it doesn't go. So I'll just say it up front. I moved into a new place like a few weeks ago. This past weekend, just got married. I mean, I'm just trying to make these huge moves in the off season here. One of the issues has been the internet connection, but I think we'll be okay. Normally the video would go, but we're talking again 2023. My guys, we have quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. We're just going to do it around the circle here and here. Who each of us are eager to put our name on in this coming fantasy football season. So why don't we go Brandon, Colin, me? Let's start off with the quarterback position. Who's your my guy this year, Brandon?
Quarterback. So I think I got killed on Facebook 2 days ago for this because he's my QB1 for this year. It's Lamar Jackson. Me and a Broward County resident, Lamar Jackson is the greatest, probably arguably the greatest fantasy quarterback in history. He has the highest points per game in the season in 2019, 28.2, 28.1, got that from two different sources. And I just don't get the recency bias with people and injuries. We saw that with CMC the back-to-back years, and look what he did last year. Now we're seeing it with Lamar Jackson. He's QB4 on Fantasy Pros, but a lot of people have him around that 6 and 7 range. When the past 4 years, he's averaged 23.1 fantasy points. That's the same as Josh Allen. That's 0.2 less than the golden boy Patrick Mahomes. So I just don't get why there's such a big difference. And there's a new offensive coordinator. You don't spend a first-round pick with Zay Flowers. You don't have Rashad Bateman coming back from injury. You don't have the tight end 2 in Dynasty, Mark Andrews, and you're just not going to throw the ball. It just doesn't make any sense, especially with the offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, that they brought in. In 2019, Todd Monken was the offensive coordinator for the Browns. Baker Mayfield has, as how bad he is, saw the career high in passing yards and pass attempts. Jameis Winston, in the 3 years that he was with Monken, saw over 1,350 pass attempts. He saw 567 in 2016. Lamar Jackson, in his MVP year, saw only 401 pass attempts. I expect him to exceed that a lot. There's a reason Lamar Jackson missed games last year and the year before that, because he was literally over 80% of the offense, always having to use his feet. So this year, I expect those rushing yards to be down a little bit, but those passing yards, I expect a career high in passing yards and passing touchdowns for ALJ this year.
And when we speak about these guys that have the upside to be the overall QB1 for a given season, I think Lamar Jackson's a guy that maybe people don't talk about enough. And it's sometimes a matter of what have you done for me lately? You missed time the year prior, and people have that recency bias at times. This is a guy that's averaged over 20 fantasy points per game for 4 straight seasons. And he's got the best core he's ever had. I know people will say, well, he's had Mark Andrews, he had Hollywood Brown, but I think this core of a healthy J.K. Dobbins, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, OBJ, this is the best receiving core he's had. Colin, you in on Jackson at the level Brandon is. What's your thoughts with Lamar Jackson? And let us know your guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is an MVP caliber quarterback. And I think the big knock on him is, well, he's not a great passer. I know some people really, really are critical of that with Lamar Jackson, but we've seen him do it. But for fantasy football purposes, I mean, it matters for sure, but Lamar Jackson is one of the best threats on the ground carrying the ball. I mean, there's highlights all over the internet you could look up. I do think the change in offensive coordinator is going to be huge for him. Like you said, this is his best personnel on offense yet. He just got the bag. So, as much as some people want to say, oh, he got paid, he's going to take it easy now. I think a lot of guys want to live up to that contract. And I think Lamar Jackson's going to be no different. There's been a lot of attention on him this offseason. I think he's going to go out there and prove it. Maybe put up another MVP season.
So who do you got, Colin, for your guy for the segment here for the quarterback position?
Yeah, first and foremost, I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So my guy's always going to be Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to stay in the division and go with Daniel Jones, a New York Giant. So I'm taking the bias out a little bit from my Eagles fandom. This is a guy that was QB 10 last year on a points per game basis and only threw 15 touchdown passes. They got him Darren Waller now, which is a huge upgrade as far as pass catchers go. They drafted Jalen Hyatt. They brought in Paris Campbell. They're keeping Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, so there's some continuity there. Saquon Barkley, also a great threat out of the backfield as a receiver. So I think Daniel Jones can put up an even better season this year. And when you're looking at quarterbacks that run, you got your Jalen Hurts, you've got Lamar Jackson, we just talked about, Josh Allen, all guys with high draft capital. Daniel Jones can run, and his new head coach from last season, Brian Daboll, let him run too. 120 rush attempts last year, career high, and he dominated on the ground game. So I think this is a guy that can put it all together. He also got paid, not as much of a big deal as, Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, still kind of on a prove-it deal, but upgraded pass catchers. He can still run. I think he can still finish inside the top 10, and you're not getting him at top 10 price right now.
Mm-hmm. And with Danny Dimes last season, I think one thing that stands out to me is the competency. I mean, he was number 5 in accuracy rating, according to Player Profiler, number 1 in true completion percentage. He had the most passing yards he's ever had. He had the least amount of interceptions. So when we look at a guy who had an iffy core, but he was much better at taking care of the football and just performing all around for the fantasy football landscape, year 1 with Brian Daboll. For me personally, that was one of the hits I think I had last season, is being in on Daniel Jones. And maybe they didn't go and draft, JSN or Flowers or Quentin Johnston, but I think that they did go and grab one of the most high upside tight ends that's out there, and they did bring in a more younger version of Darius Slayton with Hyatt. But it'll be interesting to see how he takes even more of a step forward year 2 with Daboll. But Brandon, in or out on Daniel Jones this coming season?
100%. And if you don't want to waste that, not even waste, spend a top pick in the 3rd or 4th round on Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or the Mahomes and the Allens, you're getting Danny Dimes in the 7th, 8th, 9th round. 708 rushing yards last year. And like they all say, rushing is king in fantasy football, especially when it comes to that quarterback position. Colin said it, 15 touchdowns last year, but yet he was still the QB 10 on a points per game basis. That man could fly. And as long as he's using his legs and the ball is making it easy for him, and now he has Darren Waller, for sure in on Danny Dimes this year.
I think we'll talk more about Waller at some point in this podcast, but it'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy and what he does this coming season as well. But my guy's going to be Deshaun Watson, who last season, he ended the year pretty decent. His last 2 games, he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but the 4 other starts, QB 30, QB 14, QB 21, and QB 20. So I don't think the hype is where it once was, when this is a guy that 4 out of 5 of his seasons played, he's averaged over 21 fantasy points per game. He was top 5 in points per game in all 3 of his full seasons. He's had a season of 4,823 passing yards and 33 passing touchdowns, a season of 551 rushing yards, both under his belt. So I think when you look at the makeup of an elite quarterback, he spells that out. And one thing that really stands out to me is Mike Clay in early, I think May, dropped his offensive line rankings. They got Cleveland up at number 2. That's a big plus for him. Amari Cooper is coming off of a huge receiving yard season. He had 9 touchdowns as well. That was a career high for him. I'm a big Elijah Moore truther, and I think that he can have a comeback season and a turnaround in his career. David Njoku, we know the athleticism tied to him. They drafted Cedric Tillman. DPJ is going to give you a couple, big plays periodically. So for a guy that we've seen be elite in more than one metric, for a guy that's been elite for fantasy football in terms of the points per game, I like Deshaun Watson to be back to Deshaun Watson in 2023. But you guys aren't, let me know. What do you guys think about Deshaun Watson?
I think he could turn back the time into the Deshaun Watson from Houston. He was gone for 2 years, and I don't get why people that have never played the game think, "Yo, you're playing now, so you got to go back to the Deshaun Watson from Houston." Like it takes some time to get the rust off, and he still has Nick Chubb back there who's going to make it so easy for him. And like you said, I'm Elijah Moore truther, just like you. Having Elijah Moore there as your wide receiver too is going to help out. Amari Cooper has been one of the best receivers since he's entered the NFL. He just doesn't have that Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase name. But in another year now in this offense, having that offensive line, I like Deshaun Watson this year. He could return back to that QB1. He could finish as a top 10 QB, and if he finishes as a top 5, I would not be surprised with the type of talent that he is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his body of work in Houston, 22.3 points per game and 52 starts. I mean, that's a significant sample size there, and he's obviously excelled in that. And he tore his ACL his rookie season. And after that, he went on to average 6 rushes per game. When you expand that over a 17-game season, it's 107 rush attempts. So you're getting a guy that's going to not only run, but like Nick said, great offensive line, great pass catchers. And, we don't have to dive too deep into the off the field stuff, but there are some people that are just going to be flat out on Deshaun Watson because of his reputation. So you might be able to get him pretty cheap, and you might get a top 5 quarterback because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I see comments like that all the time. And I'm not, I mean, if you play fantasy football how you want to play fantasy football at the end of the day, and you want to draft guys that you want to root for. So, I mean, if people don't like the character or whatever is behind him, it is what it is at the end of the day. I've done that in the past with other guys, I think, just mentally. But I think that does have an impact on where he could go in drafts, because I'll put out a stat about Deshaun Watson, and somebody will say on Twitter, like, I'll never touch that guy. And it is what it is, but that's going to impact your fantasy football drafts at the end of the day. So let's go snake here. We're going to go into the running back position. So we'll go me, Colin, Brandon for this one, and then we'll switch it up to the order for the wide receiver positions. But running back, I got J.K. Dobbins. We talked about Lamar Jackson already, so I guess we're just talking about the Ravens here. But I statted out the games. Dobbins has seen 10-plus touches from 2020 to 2022. And these are all games including playoffs. And these were the averages. 12.65 rushing attempts, which is not a lot, but 73.59 rushing yards, 5.72 yards per carry, 0.59 rushing touchdowns, and 14 fantasy points. 14 fantasy points would have been the RB7 in points per game for 2022. This past season, we saw in weeks 14 through 17, 2 games of 120-plus rushing yards. And you can tell that he wasn't himself, because he would have these big, explosive plays that he looked hobbled up on. His rookie season, weeks 11 through 17, the yards per carry numbers just completely jump out. He scored a touchdown in all of those specific weeks. He finished with 9 touchdowns. Offensive coordinator change, we mentioned before, could actually be a good thing if they don't go to as much of a committee approach as they have in the past. But when we look at some good metrics for J.K. Dobbins, 5.7 and 6 yards per carry, 2022 and 2020. That's some run efficiency. True yards per carry, top 4 rankings in both of those seasons. He's a year further away from that injury that he had. Elusive and explosive, top 5 in juke rate in both of his seasons he played. Number 4 in breakaway runs his rookie season. I think Baltimore's offense is going to be nasty. We talked about, again, Lamar Jackson. I think the offense in general is going to be very good this year. And I think that means scoring potential, even if Lamar Jackson takes away some of that in the red zone. So I do like J.K. Dobbins to have a bit of a bounce back this year. Obviously, health has been a concern in the past. But Colin, thoughts on Dobbins?
Yeah, I mean, if you could guarantee me J.K. Dobbins is going to even play like 14 games, I'd say I'd be in. I have seen a lot of people start to rally around this idea of him being a bounce back player, and I do agree. But when we're, on draft day and we're looking at the board here, if a lot of people share that same idea, his value starts to creep up, and that makes me a little bit nervous. You look at other guys that are returning from injury, maybe not as far out as J.K. Dobbins, but guys like Breece Hall, Javonte Williams. Right now, I think Breece Hall, you have to use a 3rd-round pick to get him. That makes me incredibly nervous. So if J.K. Dobbins continues to move up and people are rallying around this idea, I'm going to be out because of his draft capital, but I really want to see him perform. I want to see him bounce back. He's an absolutely explosive runner. I do think this team's going to spend a lot of time in the red zone, and I don't necessarily think they want Lamar Jackson running as much as he has. So I'm in for a J.K. Dobbins bounce back, but I'm not going to pay the price I think it might cost when drafts roll around.
Which I think is a good note all around. I think at times we are either fully in or fully out, but sometimes it's a matter of, hey, I think this guy will be good, but it depends on the costs when it comes to your redraft drafts. So that's a great point there. Brandon, quick thoughts on J.K. Dobbins, and let's get into Collins' guy after.
Currently, I'm in on JK. You could get him in the 5th round, but if he goes in any higher, like for example, Brees Hall was getting him in the 5th round in mock drafts, and now he's a top 20 play in ESPN ADP. So it's like if that happens to, I'm not saying that's going to exactly happen to Dobbins, but if he keeps going up, I'm kind of out on him. We saw all those clips last year where he would just go full speed and then literally hobble like something was bothering his knee. He's gone through too many surgeries for me. Currently, I'm in because, like you said, he's going to be in the red zone. He's going to get those touchdowns. I don't think Gus Edwards is a threat or anyone else. Lamar Jackson, I just said he's missed this back-to-back year, multiple games. There's a reason why with him running the ball like he is. If JK's at 100%, he's going to smash this year 1,000%.
We might have lost Nick, but, he already told us about his internet connection. We're still live, though, so I'm going to go on with my guy. We both obviously just covered J.K. Dobbins, so we'll keep things going. I got Miles Sanders, and I know I already said I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. He's now with the Carolina Panthers, one of their highest paid free agents that they brought in this season. Completely new regime. Frank Reich, a head coach, but Deuce Staley's also their running back coach. I'll get to him in a second. Miles Sanders is coming off a career best year. Obviously, running behind the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, anyone's going to have success. So look at those kind of guys this year: Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, of course. But Miles Sanders in particular, 279 touches, 1,347 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That's after the year prior, he had 0 touchdowns. So he is one of those guys that bounced back in a big way and didn't cost a lot. If you do like to do the 0 RB build, I think this is a guy that you can get as your RB1 this year because I think he's going to be a volume-based RB1. They brought him in for a reason. They haven't brought in really anyone else of note. They still have Chuba Hubbard there. He's not a bell cow back. Miles Sanders has obviously proven he can be. They have Raheem Blackshear, and I'm trying to think of the last guy there. But Miles Sanders in particular, I think the knock on him is that he doesn't catch passes. Well, on the Philadelphia Eagles, when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts who can run, he's not going to check down to his running back a lot. So obviously they pass to the running back at a very low rate. Miles Sanders on the Carolina Panthers, I think with Bryce Young, a rookie quarterback under center, is going to see maybe 50, 60 targets this year. Little known fact about Miles Sanders, came out of Penn State at his pro day. Deuce Staley, then with the Philadelphia Eagles, was there and wanted Miles Sanders to line up at wide receiver because they were lacking wide receivers at the pro day. So he knows what he can do as a pass catcher. I think he's going to deploy him as such in Carolina, 3 down back. And I think this is a guy that can, arguably go for another 275, maybe even 300 touches. High-end RB2, maybe even an RB1.
Looking at the running backs on the roster, yeah, it's just Miles Sanders and Raheem Blackshear. And to be honest, looking at the receivers too, he might just be the best athlete on that offensive right now. You got little Bryce Young there, who's a rookie, who's going to go through some struggles. You're going to have to rely on some. You're going to have to rely on Miles Sanders. He just came off his career. He got the bag for a reason. Like you said, with 0 RB, I will take him where he's at right now. And moving into my running back, if you are going to go 0 RB, Dameon Pierce. I was never a fan of Dameon Pierce, but this man survived the NFL draft being a day 3 running back. And you just have to look at that. And I literally never paid attention to Dameon Pierce, but when I was just looking at my guys and guys that like you could find value on, this man had 939 yards in 13 games. So he wasn't efficient, but he wasn't efficient at all. I think his yards per carry about 4.3. It was like in the top. It was like in 30th when it comes to running backs. But 939 yards in 13 games, he would have easily touched 11, 1,200. He didn't have that many touchdowns, just 5. But the only guy that's behind him is Devin Singletary and Mike Boone. Devin Singletary, they brought him in for his pass catching ability. This man he's never cracked 200 carries in a season at all. He was with the Bills. Barely did anything. His best finish was RB20 on a total points per game basis. Damian Pierce has spoken about how he wants to get better in the blocking game and the pass catching game. I would say Damian Pierce had 30 catches last year and I believe 40 targets. I would like that to basically increase by 10. But yeah, you got to see a guy that had over close to 1,000 yards in just 13 games. What is he going to do in a full pace? And this is with a new quarterback in CJ Stroud, not Davis Mills. CJ Stroud, night and day compared to Davis Mills. They will be moving the ball up and down the field. And we got Nick back. And I think Damian Pierce will see around 10 touchdowns this year. And he's where he's going right now. He's great for those 0 RB guys out there.
I just hope Damian Pierce is as efficient, if not better, than Nick's internet. That's all we can hope for.
I think my internet. I'm trying to draw a good comparison right now. I keep messaging these guys, and I don't care about this being informal. I think it's a good podcast so far. But I keep messaging these guys like, just finish it up, without me. But I feel bad that I get connected to the internet and jump back on. So if you guys lose me again, just you guys wrap it up or whatever. But you lead the way. Go ahead.
You got to get it fixed for your drafts, though.
No,
man.
you can't
go on auto draft.
I think we just spoke about Damian Pierce and Miles Sanders. How do you feel about them?
Damian Pierce and Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, I like the opportunity due to the vacated carries, obviously, with Deonta Foreman, Christian McCaffrey. I think he had like 85 carries himself, and Deonta Foreman had a big workload. I think the only hesitation is, how's this Panthers offense going to look? Are they going to be in scoring positions? Are they going to try to emphasize the pass? And if so, can Sanders get involved to his rookie year levels? Pierce, Singletary's going to be there, obviously. And I do think he's going to touch the ball more than.
Did it happen again?
I think he's going to touch the ball more than he ever has as well, Nick. I know where you're going with that.
No,
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it really is.
He's probably losing his mind, but we'll keep it light here. Leo, let's move on. Let's move on to wide receivers. I'm going to keep it within the division with Miles Sanders. I'm going to go with my guy, Chris Olave, second-year wide receiver on the New Orleans Saints. This is a guy that should have won Rookie of the Year, should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver on the Jets, obviously took home the award. Chris Olave got knocked out quite literally with concussion, missed a game, I think maybe two. I think it was definitely one game, though. And because of that, he obviously didn't complete the season, didn't have the stats that Garrett Wilson had in 2 fewer games. So it was 2. Then Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave had 28 fewer targets, just 61 fewer yards, though, on 11 fewer receptions, but the same amount of touchdowns, which was just 4. And that was with Andy Dalton as his quarterback. Both of these guys, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, both get upgrades. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. So I obviously love both of these guys. I think Garrett Wilson right now is going to be a little bit more pricey than Chris Olave. So that's why I have Chris Olave as one of my guys. I think you can wait into that late second, early third and get a guy like him. 24.1% target share in 2022. And who's his competition? Michael Thomas. He's missed 40 of his last 50 applicable games. No Jarvis Landry anymore. You have Rashid Shaheed and maybe Alvin Kamara's there. I don't know. We got to see if he's going to be suspended, but pass catching back might not be there. So you have Chris Olave again as the top target for Derek Carr. And last season, Derek Carr, QB 20, but Devontae Adams, wide receiver 3 on a points per game basis. We saw a ton of deep balls to Devontae Adams on the Las Vegas Raiders offense. Chris Olave, that is his skill set. I think he is going to be an absolute beast this season.
I couldn't agree more. The thing with Derek Carr, the one thing he's going to do, he's going to get it to his guy no matter what. It doesn't matter. He could throw 3 interceptions, but he's going to throw for 400 yards. With Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, it's insane how he put up that season in 2019 and just fell off a cliff. Alvin Kamara, he loves to beat people up. He can't, I don't know what's wrong with that. Was my favorite running back coming up, but time has gone for him. But yeah, Chris Olave, where you're getting, I've done a couple of mocks where I'll go a Nick Chubb and a Bijan, or a Jonathan Taylor and a Nick Chubb, or a Josh Jacobs. And my first wide receiver off the board every single time is Chris Olave. He's perfect in that round 3. That's a wide receiver 1. Look what he did. His yards per route run. I remember Ian Miller tweeting it. He was along the ranks with the Jamar Chases and the Jeffersons of the world. Chris Olave is that good. Ohio State is that good when it comes to producing receivers. And like you said, Colin, there really is no other threat for him. Michael Thomas could play a whole season, but it's not Michael Thomas. How many surgeries he's had, how many injuries he's had. He's over 30 years old. I just don't see it. He might have 800-900 yards, but Chris Olave is the alpha of this team.
So who you got, Brandon? Let's hear it.
This literally, I think he's been my guy since he's entered the NFL, and he finally got someone, and it's Mr. DJ Moore. So DJ Moore, since obviously, the Jeffersons and the Chases have come into the NFL, but since 2018, DJ Moore has been 11th in receiving yards. With these new guys coming in, I remember always looking at this, he used to be like top 7, top 8, but now he's number 11. With quarterbacks like Tyler Heineke, PJ Walker, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, and it's insane how Sam Darnold and DJ Moore had the best connection. But yeah, it makes no sense. But yeah, he's 12th in air yards last year, and now reading off his last 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021. He was 8th in receiving yards, 9th in receiving yards, 10th in receiving yards. 2019, he was 10th in receptions. 2020, he was only 30th in receptions, but he literally was 5th in air yards. And people don't like to say Justin Fields isn't going to throw the ball. Going to Justin Fields, what I don't understand is that, like, sometimes people see the patterns and it's like, no, I can't believe it. Like, we see the patterns. The Eagles were dead last in 2021 in pass attempts. They went up to 23rd last year. We saw what Jalen Hurts did, obviously on the ground and in the air with over 3,500 yards. Now the Bears were last year, and now this, like, we could see it. We see Justin Fields. People forget Justin Fields wasn't a runner in Ohio State. That boy was letting the ball fly, and people, like, you're playing with probably the worst O-line in the history of the NFL. Your wide receiver 1 is Darnell Mooney, and your wide receiver 2 is someone who Chase Claypool. I don't even want to talk about him. I'm such a talent, but yeah. So with DJ Moore, you get that alpha wide receiver 1. He might not be the AJ Brown, he might not be the Stephon Diggs as they were before they got Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, but DJ Moore has produced with the mediocre that has been his quarterback, and now he gets arguably the greatest quarterback he's ever played with since practically his entire life. And people are over here drafting, like, saying, "Oh, he's not going to take that leap. He's not going to take that leap." 3 straight years over 1,150 yards. The touchdown department is where I'm worried about. But when it comes to those targets, and we all play in PPR leagues, he's going to get a lot of catches with Justin Fields. That's the wide receiver 1. We see it on the OTA. So many reports of him and Fields having that connection. I cannot wait this year for DJ Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore from 2019 to 2021, in those 3 seasons, was the only player in the NFL with 1,200 or more all-purpose yards. The only player in the NFL. And like you said, that was with subpar quarterback play. I think it's significant that the Bears actually had an offer from the Las Vegas Raiders to get that first overall pick, and instead they courted the Carolina Panthers, but made sure that DJ Moore was in that package for the first overall pick. They needed an alpha for their guy, Justin Fields. They got it in DJ Moore. I did like that you mentioned that they were last in pass attempts per game last year, because that is the only thing holding me back a little bit. What does this offense look like when Justin Fields is throwing more? I think it's going to be fine. Their offensive line still scares me a little bit. They did tend to it this offseason a little bit, but like you said, PPR leagues, I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw from DJ Moore in Carolina in those, top seasons there, as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I think we're going to see that again in Chicago. I think his floor is absolutely extremely safe. In PPR leagues especially, I think he's going to obviously lead this team in targets. I think he can near 100 receptions, but like you said, the yardage, maybe even the touchdowns scare me a little bit. But as for stacking quarterbacks and wide receivers, the Mahomes-Kelsey stack is obviously going to be extremely expensive. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, or even Devontae Smith, that's going to be expensive. And Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that's going to be expensive as well. But you can get Justin Fields after all those quarterbacks, and you can get DJ Moore a lot later than all those wide receivers. So if you're looking for an option for a cheap stack for a quarterback wide receiver that you get their points, obviously, when those two are clicking, this is a stack that I would definitely invest in, because I think it's going to take mid-round draft capital to do so. Definitely something I'm targeting, but I don't want to go into the fantasy season with DJ Moore as my wide receiver 1. I do think he's a good wide receiver 2, though, this year.
100%. I think he's a bona fide wide receiver 2, and he'll have those spike weeks like he did a couple throughout his career. Well, he'll just go bonkers and drop 25 plus points. But I would say, around 12 points, 14 points as your wide receiver 2. You get him in the 4th round, the ending of the 4th round, possibly the 5th. Most guys probably will be fading DJ Moore just because from everything that I see, everybody hates Justin Fields. But it's just like, yo, like, if you were playing with the worst offensive line in football, like, what would you do? You get me? But it is what it is. We'll see this year.
Yeah, you got to know your league. You got to see, especially if in your home league or something, if you're drafting with guys or girls that get an idea of which players they've historically liked or disliked.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell in your league. DJ Moore's been in the league for a while now. You can tell who's going to be in or out on him. I can already think of a couple players that I draft with that I know are going to be out on DJ Moore just because they've never been in on DJ Moore, and
Same.
I don't think they're going to now. So definitely want to know who you're drafting with, and keep an eye on that board. We'll move on to tight ends here. I started the wide receiver, so why don't you give me your guy at tight end, Brandon?
This guy, I try to find positive things to say about him. There's a lot of negativity around him, surrounding him. He was traded to your guy, Danny Dimes, this year. His ADP is 59.2, so you're getting him at the end of the 5th round, 6th round. Since Darren Waller's been in the NFL, I was looking at this today, he's only had 2 healthy seasons. He's been in the NFL since 2015. His 2 healthy seasons, 2019, 2020. Tight end 5, tight end 2 on a points per game basis, both of those years. Now you have a fresh start. You don't have Devontae Adams. You really are being brought into this situation to basically make it as easy as possible for number 8 to get the football out to his weapons. It wouldn't surprise me if he's the number one, not even the number one tight end, but the number one target leader on this team and receptions as well. He just has to stay healthy. He really does. He's a 6'6", 250-pound tight end who loves going in the middle of the field. Danny Dimes is going to find that ball. And I feel like I said earlier, the bowl made it as easy as possible for Danny Dimes to succeed last year. And now you bring in basically a security blanket in Darren Waller, who's been one of the best tight ends when he's actually healthy. So let's see. If he's healthy, he's a smash. Right now, he's literally going with the Kyle Pitts, who I love Kyle Pitts for Dynasty. When it comes to redraft with Arthur Smith as the coach, there's no point. He shouldn't be ahead of Darren Waller. You also have Kittle in front of him, which I saw a stat where with Brock Purdy as the quarterback, Kittle's target share was, I think, 11.8 or 13.8, one of those two. But that's horrible. That just proves like Kittle's not a scrub, an amazing player when it comes to blocking. When it comes to just being a football player, he's amazing. But when it comes to fantasy, I think he kind of capped out, and there's just too much weapons on that team with McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk. And when it comes to someone like Darren Waller, I'm like, are you really going to think, besides Barkley, who else on that team is going to threaten him with receptions and targets? Not pretty much anybody. So the only thing that's stopping him is himself. As long as he's healthy, he's going to smash with where you're getting him at too. He literally in the range of outcomes besides Kelsey, because he's just a unicorn. Tight end too, easily.
Yeah, I think what's important about Darren Waller is that you can invest in Darren Waller knowing that you're getting a probable advantage at the tight end position.
Mm-hmm.
But because that position is so, it's a crapshoot, really. You could find a starting tight end on the waiver wire if you have to, if Darren Waller does succumb to an injury or something. You think of Evan Ingram last year. Cole Kmet had a nice little stretch there. There's guys out there, especially if you play in, not a tight end premium league, but even like a 1 quarterback league, 10-team, 12-team league. There's going to be tight ends you can stream, absolutely. So I would draft Darren Waller in confidence for his ceiling, especially in redraft. If I'm doing a dynasty startup today, obviously I'm a little bit more cautious because he is getting up there in age. But for 2023 specifically, I think you're right. I think he's going to be the New York Giants' top pass catcher. The only one really fighting him for targets, legitimate targets, would probably be Saquon Barkley. The rest of the receivers you have Darius Slayton going deep, but then you have a lot of slot receivers. You have and a lot of guys aren't going to even make the team. There's a lot of names there right now. Sterling Shepard, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt's obviously going to make the team. Wan'Dale Robinson's obviously going to make the team. But
you got Isaiah Hodgins there too.
Isaiah Hodgins,
so much weapon.
They brought him back. So not all of these guys can carve out a role. So something's got to give here. But Darren Waller is a guy that they traded a 3rd-round pick for. That 3rd-round pick they got from Kansas City by trading away former 1st-round pick Kadarius Toney. So they do have a lot invested in this guy, and I think he's going to be on the field a ton. I think he's going to be Daniel Jones' top target. Daniel Jones isn't looking down the field, like you said. He's going to be looking, slant routes, middle of the field to the edge. And I think Darren Waller is going to be that guy for him for sure. Health is a concern, though.
If you draft him in the 5th or 6th round, you could draft Chig from Tennessee or Greg from Denver in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. Evan Ingram is there. Like, the tight end position is so bad. I think people are so scared if their name isn't Kelsey or Andrews. This man, Darren Waller, played in 9 games last year. He was tight end 10 and he averaged 9.4 points. Like, that position is I really want to see what's good. Like, I pray Meyer and Laporta and all of them could take over once Kelsey goes, because after Kelsey and Andrews, it's just like, and TJ as well. But other than that, that position is just so like, you do not know what to expect.
there's something to be said too about, Darren Waller starts, I think it was a calf injury that held him out. The Raiders were really bad. And you got to start to wonder, like, Darren Waller's calf hurts. Is he really going to roll himself back out there knowing that the Raiders are obviously not going to the playoffs that year?
Yeah, they started off like 2-7 or something like that, right?
Yeah, so there was really no rush for him to get back. The New York Giants, however, playoff caliber team, obviously a wild card team last year. They're making strides to,
even won a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, they beat the Minnesota Vikings. You're right. So, he's obviously going to be an asset on this team, and I think he obviously feels somewhere where he's welcome now, because I don't think him and Josh McDaniels had a very good relationship either. My guy here just won a Super Bowl. He's the best tight end in football. It's Travis Kelce. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, he's everybody's guy here. Yeah, right. He's obviously everybody's guy. You can draft Travis Kelce in the first round, but my guy here, I'm taking a little bit of a risk. This guy's value has gone up and down, up and down. I think right now a lot of people are shying away a little bit. He's a rookie. I'm going with Dalton Kincaid on the Buffalo Bills. 25th overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. The Bills made it a priority to get him. Joe Shane, or it wasn't Joe Shane. I'm trying to think who the Bills GM is.
No, but I remember the video you're talking about. Like, they made it a priority. Like, I need this guy.
This is a guy that, he gives us something that we don't have on our offense right now. And I think that is a big slot receiver. When you look at the Buffalo Bills offense from last year, they ran the least amount of 2 tight end sets, 12 personnel. They have Dawson Knox. They bring in Dalton Kincaid. So you expect that number to go up. They're going to run some 2 tight end sets. But I think Dalton Kincaid is going to line up in the slot a lot for this team. And I think he's going to be an absolute asset there. Good pass catcher from college. When you look at Josh Allen's history as the quarterback for this team, he has thrown 100 or more targets to 7 different people, or 7 different times since 2018. 3 of those times were Cole Beasley on 3 separate seasons, recording over 100 targets. That was from 2019, 2020, and 2021. They even called Beasley back last year, if you remember, to return to fill in for the slot. Obviously, that's not the case this year. I think they got Dalton Kincaid to play that role. We don't have a good history with rookie tight ends succeeding in their first season. When you look at most targets all time for rookie tight ends, Jeremy Shockey leads the way with 127. Evan Ingram actually in 2017 had 115 targets. And then Kyle Pitts, just 2 years ago, 110 targets. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that Dalton Kincaid flirts with 100 targets this year. You've got Stephon Diggs, who there's some rumors swirling he's unhappy in Buffalo. But then behind him, you have Gabe Davis, who's really a boomer bust guy. And that's really it. I mean, it's not the greatest group of pass catchers you'd like to see from a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl. Kind of been a letdown over the past seasons. So I think bringing in a guy like Dalton Kincaid, who's pro-ready, first-round draft capital, I think he's going to exceed expectations his rookie season. And right now, again, a lot of people have that rookie tight end narrative negativity. I think you can get him pretty cheap too. And it's worth it.
Sure.
Like we just said, you can get Chiga Okonkwo on the waiver wire, Greg Dulcich later. Why not get the upside of Dalton Kincaid? And, if you miss with a late round pick, you grab someone off the waiver wire, even like a Hayden Hurst. Could do worse.
That's where Kincaid is going around there. And it's like you said, you spend a first round pick on a weapon, you're going to use them. Like, there's no, I know Dawson Knox is over there, but that one season he had, it was because he caught like 10, 11, 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's literally why he was a top 5 tight end. But other than that, who's the better athlete? Who's the better weapon? It's Dalton Kincaid. We saw what he did in Utah. Gabe Davis, I have nothing good to say about Gabe Davis at all. Like, nothing. There's nothing. You draft Gabe Davis, you start him, he does 2 points, you bench him because he gets you mad, he drops 35 points, he's the wide receiver 1 that week, then you're like, damn, I gotta start him now. Start him, 2.2 points again. It's just like, yeah, he's a good deep threat, but for fantasy purposes, you do not want that on your team. You do not want a guy that's like, I hope he gets his 3 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown, or he'll just have 2 catches for 16 yards. So like you said with Dalton, you don't draft the guy and you're not going to use him. You're going to use him. That guy, I wouldn't be surprised if he has over 800 yards this year. He's going to have a handful of touchdowns. And you're with Josh Allen. How many of these rookie quarterbacks had a top 3 quarterback and top 2 fantasy option at that position? He's going to get him the ball 1,000%.
Yeah,
and at the price, I'll for sure get him.
Yeah, even Kyle Pitts. I mean, his price was sky high his rookie season. Obviously, he was the 8th overall pick. Or was he the 4th overall pick?
Kyle Pitts it's insane. He really was the fourth
I think he
overall
was the
pick
fourth
as a
overall
tight
pick. I'm
end.
thinking of Bijan was the 8th overall pick.
No,
He
he
just
was. That's
drafted.
crazy to think about him.
So obviously people were hype about him, but yeah, like you said, look at his quarterback his rookie year. I mean, none of these guys have had Josh Allen as they entered the league. So I think we could see something special here. Even Evan Ingram, I mentioned him, second all time in targets as a rookie tight end. He had Eli Manning at the tail end of his career. So I think this is a guy that can, produce a special season. If you're going to invest in a rookie wide receiver or a rookie pass catcher, why not look to tight end and grab a Dalton Kincaid? Obviously, Nick Script, CEO of P2W Fantasy, his internet connection crapped out. Luckily for him, it's only June. So hopefully he gets the internet fixed as draft season rolls around here. And he's not, landed on auto draft for his drafts coming up in August or so. Yeah, no one likes an auto drafter. So obviously Brandon and I were able to roll with the punches here. Great talking to you. It's good to, get some FaceTime here, part of the P2W contributors.
As always.
There's going to be plenty more. This was hard to choose from. There's plenty of guys that I could have considered my guys, but I feel like we got a good list here. We're talking about this stuff constantly in the P2W Discord. If you follow Nick on Twitter at P2W Fantasy, he's got all the info there to join the Discord. It's only $5 a month. Brandon, myself, plenty of other analysts and fantasy football managers like yourself are in that Discord talking fantasy football, constant conversations. Honestly, it was going off as we were recording this podcast here. So I'm going to be checking in on that in a second. Any parting words here, Brandon, before we sign off?
It was good times. Hopefully we could do this again with Mr. Script here. Hopefully he gets his Wi-Fi fixed. But other than that, it was fun. It was fun talking. I love talking about my guys. I love that redraft season is right around the corner because that's like my bread and butter. Redraft season is so fun, just drafting teams. And it's just weird to me because it's like best ball. I like best ball, but it's just like, I don't know. I just am fascinated about setting a lineup. And then if there's someone on the bench that does better, I just like, damn, I got to do better next time. Like, I like it because best ball is kind of like, yeah, I love drafting, but I love like having to analyze and like, yo, should I start this guy or should I start this guy? And when it pans out and he actually does well, I'm like, okay, I made the right start, and you just feel good about yourself. That's why redraft is just so fun.
Yeah, there's something to be said about like, I stole this guy in the 20th round of my best ball draft. He's really paying off for me. But there's something also to be said about setting that redraft lineup, like you said. Yeah, I made the gutsy decision to sit this guy and start this guy this week, and it got me the win. Just gives you a little bit more, clout as a fantasy football manager.
Or when you take Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the 105 his rookie year and you still win the league, it makes no sense. That's the one in my home league. This is going to be the 6th year 4 his rookie year. I take him one. I'm fascinated with rookie running backs ever since Devontae Freeman. Yeah. And this man CEH really burnt me, but yet I still won. But I took Mahomes with my third round pick. That was the year he signed the contract. So kind of look for Lamar. You signed that big contract. You want to show, okay, I'm worth this money. Because I at the end of the day, these athletes are normal humans like us. I guarantee you Lamar sees those comments saying he's a running back, running back that. And he's like, okay, let me show you. Let me show you something.
Absolutely. We won't forget what kind of player Lamar was in 2019 and 2023. I think he's going to show out in a big way.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. That's it here today on the P2W YouTube channel, the P2W podcast. I'm Colin McTamaney, Brandon Blanco, Nick Script. Thanks for trusting us to continue on with the show here. Whether you like it or not, we finished it up. So take it easy, everybody.
Be safe, bro.
Yep, you too.